Hey everybody, welcome to Amy Nolte Music. Welcome to the Q&A video where I have received amazing questions from the good people of Instagram who follow me there. The first question has to do with requests. What's a song request you've gotten that you couldn't believe they were requesting and or the requester couldn't believe you actually knew? It's a good question. I think that maybe this was in my period where I was playing a lot of requests and I was learning everything that was in the top 40, and maybe it would be something like if they were to ask me to play like Hotline Bling by Drake, because I used to like to play that a lot. You used to call me on my, you used to call me on your cell phone, late night when you need my love, you call me on my cell phone, late night when you need someone, and I know when that hotline bling, it can only mean one thing. I know when that hotline bling, it can only mean one thing. Ever since I left the city, you got a reputation for yourself now. Girl, you got me down, you got me stressed out. You can see, like that, I add a little jazz to the Drake, and it was really fun to play that for people. It still would be. Good question. Next question. Amy, how are you doing? I'm great, thank you. My question for your video is, what kind of voicings can we use if we play a slow, straight ballad? Great question. Great question. Let's see what we can do about that. All right, of course, it depends on what instrument you're playing, right? If I was going to play, say, Misty, solo piano, it would be a different story than if I was going to try to, do it up here. It's a little bit different on different instruments. It's also different if I'm singing. Look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree. You're going to make different decisions based on what instrument you're playing at any given time. If you're playing solo piano, though, which I think is what you're asking about, it's always a really nice idea to be able to spread things out by at least a fifth with your left hand. Then you just have to decide. But I tend to like to play notes that are a whole step or a half step apart in the middle of the piano. Doesn't mean that you can't play roots, like this is B flat major 7, right? Sometimes when you play ballads, it's a little better to include notes like the root and the fifth, because it's like the consonants is more forgiving when you're playing ballads. But if you're playing, if you're playing music like that, then you don't want to play fifths and roots because you want to leave that for your bass player. But if you're playing a ballad, you have room to, of course, play roots yourself. But if you can spread things out with your left hand, this much, this much, this much, this much, of course, that's easier to do if you have, white note to white note. It's also very important to know your inversions of things. So say I choose to play this for Misty. It's important to be able to make a soundscape because you know where all of those shapes are. It's also important to know where the melody is and to fit your chords around it as you go, no matter what they are. I hope that's helpful. Next question, how to exit diatonic land? It's a good question. It's not as easy as just going from Adventureland to Tomorrowland or something. Say we're playing a tune like All of Me. It's very much in C major. And until it goes to E7, and then it goes to A7, and then you go to D7, right? Like it's gonna, or D minor, it's gonna shift around, but every time we land on a chord, like you are taught that you need to be playing within that harmony, like you need to make it happen. So that if there were no chords, you could still hear what the harmony is. I think, it's pretty clear that I made that be A minor. So that's the way we're taught to play. And that takes years and years and years to develop, to be able to play a line that outlines the harmony and lets the listener know what the harmony is. Now, when you get to the next level, you want to exit diatonic land. I very much understand this. So let's pretend for a second that I just have an E7 chord that's going to an A minor chord, okay? Lasts for 2 bars, gets me to A minor, and it's 2 bars. What you need to ask yourself is, if you would like to exit diatonic land, you need to ask yourself, where have I come from and where am I going? So the answer is we're E7, and I'm going to A minor. So I need to ask myself, what is maybe one note that is shared in common with both of those places, and figure out an exciting way to use that note to tie both of them together in a way that nobody would expect. So if I have these notes, I basically have this note and this note to choose from, and this note, if I'm using the fifth or the root of E7, it's also the fifth. If I'm using the third of E7, it's also the major 7. That's kind of an exciting idea. So if I wanted to, I could take that exciting idea and then I could make a different kind of triad. That's a good way to think about how to do this. So if you can ask yourself, what's a cool triad that maybe I wouldn't have thought of to play over E, but is close to E because it has this note, it has the 13, it has the flat 9, which is part of that dominant sound. So then I can ask myself, then I use that same note when I get to A minor to kind of justify what I did, like my little choice. That's one way, is to think of a triad that's outside of the key. It has a common tone to both where you've been, where you're going to, and to explore how to use it. It's one of my favorite little tools. Doesn't mean that you have to pick one with a common tone. You don't have to. You can choose any triad you want, but a triad is a great way to escape the diatonicism that may have a hold on you. That was choosing an F triad. It also has this note to where I'm going, right? But the important thing is that you know where you've been, you know where you're going, and you have an exit plan. So I can't just willy-nilly play F major. I don't know, that wasn't so bad. It's hard to do something bad. But I can't only play those notes and expect it to sound cool. I have to come out of it in a slick way, and into it in a slick way. Maybe I do an arpeggio on an E7 chord. I do my F triad, then I decide on a note to land on in A minor. Then I've done it. Same thing if I choose the D flat. And the key is to land on a chord tone of your new center where you're going to on beat 1 and on beat 3. Like, you have to nail beats 1 and beats 3 with chord tones, like chord tones that really let everybody know that you're in the key that you're going to. I hope that's helpful. Next question. Where do you think professional live music is headed? It's a really good question. I think, live performance has changed in so many ways since the beginning of time, really. We've always been performing, so we can, if we track it through classical musicians playing for royalty in the court, if we track it to minstrels playing on the street, all the way to musicians playing on the street, even now in the subways, that's a different kind of live experience than, maybe when people went to go see Elvis, people went to see the Beatles, people see Earth, Wind, and Fire, whoever, right? As time moves along, everybody who is in the audience is having a completely different experience because of the way technology and just our world in general is advancing. And I don't see that as a problem. Since I've gotten this little keyboard, it changes the way that I play sometimes. I would love to use this analog delay. Can't meet you for coffee in the Italian place. It's where I met your family and some words were exchanged. Right, it changes everything. And it's not something that I was using before I got this keyboard. So you get a new piece of gear, you're able to explore new places that you haven't explored before, and that'll just keep going throughout time as it advances, I think. Whatever the new gear is, people are going to find beautiful ways to use it. People will find beautiful ways to use it. You get the technology, people find the beautiful thing. But with the world of AI, and we're like in the genesis of a brand new period, I think, and it's just kind of a waiting time. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out. Maybe you've seen Jacob Collier talk about working with AI developers at Google and about taking parts of life and being able to prompt the AI to make music out of things like bird calls or train whistles, footsteps, I don't know. But to be able to enter a command such that it creates a dubstep for you with these extra sounds. Then you say, I want less bass, I want more mockingbird, I don't know, whatever you put in it, but you become the kind of conductor, as it were, of all of this information that's going on to create your own soundscape. That kind of a thing is a question for me. I don't know what it's going to do to us. I don't know what it's going to do to music in general, but I do think that when people come to hear music at a venue, that they're looking for a personal connection. I don't think that's going to stop. And the kids that are coming up in music right now, they are better than ever. They're practicing hard. They're learning from the greats. They're becoming really adept on instruments. I don't see that is stopping, even though people have access to their DAWs and being able to kind of be a musician when they've never actually learned to be a musician. I don't see it as a problem because we like musicians. We like people who create things from acoustic places. So I have faith in humanity that we're going to be okay. I think we need to be careful as we move forward. And I think there are fun things on the horizon to inspire audiences around the world as technology develops. Also, I think all of those things. Next question. At the risk of it sounding like a plug, how is Nebula going? Also, how is it making videos in a post-pandemic sense? Is it harder to do or keep up with a schedule, or is it as easy as ever? The pandemic was kind of good for me career-wise. I found myself in a place where I felt like I could offer some inspiration, maybe some warmth, some knowledge, maybe some humor to people who had to stay home and found themselves looking at their computers, TVs, phones for a lot of their entertainment. Not that we don't do that already, but my source of income went up during the pandemic. It was, good for me in that way. But after the pandemic, I don't think it's changed for me in an aesthetic kind of way. I still want to make videos. I really look at making videos for YouTube, Nebula, content for Instagram, TikTok now. Like, I look at it kind of like a journal, where anything that I ever think about music, I just have an outlet for. I can put it in a place. It's a very public place, albeit, but it exists forever. And people can take it or leave it, comment on it, and it's there. It's kind of something I stand by, and it's almost like therapy too, to get it out. So my need to put musical content out into the world hasn't changed because of any pandemic. I don't think. My time's a little more limited now. Nebula has been really good for me. I do have a whole video about why I never quit YouTube, and it's because with Nebula, one of the things that they do for me is that they help me place sponsors on my videos. Like I have a sponsor for today's video called Ground News that I'll tell you about in just a little bit. But I used to have to make a video, pour all my time and energy into it, hope that it got hundreds of thousands of views, because if it didn't, I wasn't going to make enough money for the month from my ads from Google, from YouTube, to, help myself and my family. Now, because Nebula will either sponsor my video or get me a sponsor for the video, I'm paid right up front for the video the second I make it. So whether it gets 5,000 views or 500,000 views isn't as important to me anymore, which feels a lot more helpful. So yeah, Nebula is great. And if you want to support me, you can always sign up for it. The link is in the description. I put a lot of good stuff there, a lot more than what is on YouTube. Thanks for the good question. Of course, all this stuff is just my opinion. It's my take on how I view the musical world around me. Having your own take on things is really important these days, I think. Sometimes it can be difficult to make opinions about things because of the chaotic mess that is our world lately, and especially our news sources. One way to sift through the chaos and make sense of the world around you is by using Ground News, the sponsor of today's video. Reading the news on the Ground News platform is an entirely different experience than what you're used to. They provide you with a bird's eye view of the entire media landscape. And every story comes with a visual breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership, all backed by ratings by 3 independent news monitoring organizations. So instead of feeling like everything's a swirling mess, you look at things from the outside and get a better perspective on what's actually happening. For example, here's a recent story about a member of the 4 Tops being racially profiled and restrained by a hospital. Right away, you can see that 34 news outlets reported on the story. Of these 34 outlets, 53% lean left, while only 7% lean right. Ground also provides a clear visual for the overall reliability and ownership. And Ground News also makes it really easy to compare headlines so that you can see how this bias might affect framing. One of my favorite features is the blind spot feed, which shows you stories underreported by one side of the political spectrum. And what I love about this is that, heaven forbid, I get into a conversation with people around me, people I love maybe, about something in the news. I can already have briefed myself on what maybe their differing point of view is so that I can be more prepared in our conversation. I think understanding where people are coming from is super important, especially today. And just imagine if my loved ones did the same thing for me and briefed themselves on what I might be reading. We could maybe actually get somewhere in our conversation. Ground News has increasingly become my favorite way to get the news. And best of all, I'm currently offering 50% off of their Vantage subscription, which gives you unlimited access to all their amazing features. So go to groundnews.com/Amy Nolte or click the link in the description and help support an independent news platform striving to make the media landscape more transparent. Thanks to everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time on Amy Nolte Music. Thanks everybody so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Amy Nolte Music.